I'm back, baby. How many times have I said I'm back just in this 65 days that I've been filming so far? I don't know, but it's been quite a few times. And that's because that's exactly what I want to talk about on, the intro to this video. And that is the real measure of like forward momentum that I found, at least for myself, is the shorter time spent in the trough and more time spent on the crest. And what I mean by that is less, shortening the periods of downtime or depression or non-motivation or whatever it is, lack of discipline, and then increasing the amount of times where I have consistency and discipline and motivation. And motivation is a tricky word because it really, success does really depend, in whatever you're endeavoring to do, does depend on discipline and consistency over motivation. But in order to have discipline, you have to have some level of intrinsic or extrinsic motivation. People who argue that you don't and you just do it just must be way farther along on their developmental journey than I am. If I have no motivation, if I don't see the point whatsoever in doing something, then it's just impossible for me to muster the discipline. But what has been really helpful this last just 7 to 12 days for me is, like, for the first time in my entire life, really accepting or determining, I guess. I never really thought it before, but I just realized that I actually do have like diagnosable ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, whatever that means. I've got it. I just watched a ridiculous Instagram video that just popped up on my feed called ADHD Love. It's just like this couple that does these silly skits about ADHD. And I realized, as whatever the skit that I watched, the internal dialogue that they were pretending, that they were skitting out, I don't know what they were playing. I was like, this could actually be, my mind. This is exactly what goes on inside my head. And I just looked more into ADHD, started watching a bunch of videos about it, and I was like, wow, this is every single symptom of this disorder or whatever it is. I have it to a T. And then I watched like a TED Talk of this chick who runs a YouTube channel called How to ADHD, I think. And I watched her TED Talk and I almost felt myself, like I was like tearing up watching it, because I was like, I relate to this more than anything I've ever related to in my life. It really seems as though my trajectory has been hindered by, this brain function style of ADHD, and not addressing it and just not, finding tools to manage it. I've always had an adoration for stimulants, be it caffeine, Adderall, whatever. Literally, if it stimulates dopamine inside your brain, I've always loved it in mass quantities for as long as I can remember, and that includes sugar. Literally as long as I can remember. I would wake up in the morning. I was pretty sneaky about this because my parents would not have liked this, but I would literally pour a bowl of like pretty sugary, pretty much just a straight bolus of sugar already, something like honey bunches of oats, and then I would scoop like 4 tablespoons of straight table sugar into that as well. And I always love sweets, love sugar, love caffeine, loved any stimulant, and that tracks perfectly with someone who kind of has the dopamine deficit that people who have ADHD do. And just, I've been diagnosed with it as a kid, but I just put everything any bipolar, ADHD, schizophrenia, all of it, I just put it all in a box that I labeled bullshit, and was just like, we all are fucked up, we all have issues. And sorry, this is light, it's terrible, you can't see me at all. We all have issues, we all have bullshit that we're going through, but just tough it out, work through it, figure it out. It's all the same. Labeling it doesn't help at all. And that was just ignorant. It was just really, really, like most things in my entire life, ignorance was at the core of it. And the reality is by accurately labeling it and using that label as a starting point for research rather than as an excuse is incredibly helpful and insightful and empowering, because now all of my shortcomings and failings and things that I just absolutely trashed myself for have an explanation. They have a reason behind them. And where there's a reason, there's always a solution. Whereas before, my solution was always just work harder, do more, try harder, power through, and that failed. I proved that was not I did it for a decade and a half straight, and it objectively failed me completely. So now I'm going to try new solutions to the same problem. My inability to focus on, or to finish tasks. That's the biggest thing that is hindering me. I have numerous books that I've basically completed. Honestly, all I need to do is just edit them and either publish them on Kindle or, reach out to literary agents and see if I can get them published the traditional way. I have started and stopped this YouTube channel at least 3 times, and YouTube channels in general numerous times over the years. I have started a bunch of businesses, a ton of different careers, and as soon as I get even a little bit bored, as soon as it's not novel and interesting to me, I just give up, I quit, and am on to the next thing. And that is not working. It's not working whatsoever, because everything takes time, and I have to set this down. Everything takes time to really bear fruit. And so I need a strategy to, finish the things that I start. And part of that strategy for me is going to have to be allowing myself to switch between things and work on multiple projects at the same time. That allows me to kind of make believe that each project is new and novel, but actually have a real system in there for completion, actual deadlines, and all sorts of different tools that I'm learning are helpful for people with the sort of brain activity that I have. ADHD is the most researched psychological condition known to man. There's more research in it than any other. It's one of the most diagnosed things, often misdiagnosed, but probably not that often misdiagnosed. It's just all put into one box where, like everything in life, it's just on a spectrum of severity, and it's individualistic in how it expresses itself, like everything else, where we're just all kind of throwing in one box. I know for me that medication, man, does it ever work? If I take any sort of stimulant, especially a really strong stimulant like Adderall, I will be laser focused for like 12 to 17 hours a day on a task. But number one, I cannot use it responsibly. More is always better in my mind, and the effects are increasing. The more that I use, the more focus that I have. So it would appear like it's this self-fulfilling prophecy. And I just believe that, for me at least, the side effects and the negative effects of it just outweigh the benefits. The long-term cost outweighs the short-term gain, and so I have to find other solutions. Certainly the first among that is just healing the massive amount of psychological trauma I've put myself through for the last 25 years or so. I actually haven't experienced a significant amount of actual big T bad trauma or events inside my life. I've had an awesome life filled with awesome. All right, what I was saying before my phone rudely interrupted me so that it could overheat is, even as a person without like very much actual external trauma inflicted on my life, I created an enormous amount of trauma inside my own head with stories that I told myself, beliefs that I made, deeply ingrained in my psyche until I made them into my reality. And those beliefs caused tremendous, untold amount of suffering and pain for years and years and years, anxiety and worry and fear, all sorts of negative emotions, just constantly. And it's a hard pill to swallow when you really take stock and, look at your life objectively. Almost all of the pain and suffering inside of it, except for acute moments inflicted upon you, it's all created by you. It's the story you tell yourself after those acute moments happen. Maybe, a trauma happens, it really only lasts 10, 15 minutes. Everything else after, that amount of time, and maybe the original healing, if it's like a physical trauma. I mean, the trauma of getting in a car accident has caused enormous amounts of ongoing physical pain and suffering. But the real suffering comes from the stories I tell about it. If I tell myself the story that it's all for a greater purpose and that it's making me better and stronger and that it feels good, and then I relish the opportunity to learn how much pain I can endure, then it's a completely different story, or it's a completely different reaction than if I tell myself constantly that it's so unfair, that I don't understand. Why is this happening to me? Why, a million times over. What does this mean? Am I a bad person? Like, there's tons of stories you can tell, that you're a great person and that you didn't ever deserve this to happen. There's so many worse people out there than you. Why did this have to happen to you? Tons of stories I could tell myself. But some would create pain and some would create deep satisfaction and happiness. So I try to gravitate towards those that cause deep satisfaction and happiness. I've been good about that with, that large trauma that happened. But it was the ones that happened as a child, the little things that happened throughout my life that created beliefs, and the stories that I told around those beliefs, that I wasn't worthy, that I didn't deserve love, that I should be ashamed of things that had happened, that I should have all of this guilt, that the world isn't safe, that I should be fearful. All of those things, coalesced into just an incredible amount of suffering throughout my life. And now I'm only just learning how to really unwind those stories. And I'm sure all of those stories are actually what created the ADHD response. The basically, I think with ADHD, from what, the little bit of research I've done last week, it's something to do with the different parts of your prefrontal cortex not communicating with each other in synchronicity. They're like out of sync somehow, and it just creates kind of the chaos of that type of brain activity. And from also what I understand, all of those different kind of stories that I built out of things that I perceive, maybe I didn't even perceive at the time to be traumatic, but could be considered traumatic in retrospect because of the stories I created from them and the massive, negative knock-on effect those stories had, or those beliefs had. The stories turned into beliefs, and the beliefs created, kind of the chaos. And I think that could probably be, the root of, the attention problem where, there's constantly a need for novelty and to switch things around. And I don't know. I'm no fucking psychiatrist or expert on this. I'm just learning. I'm saying the point is that recognizing, that these things aren't just labels has really, and that they have, true meaning. And maybe you should, if people say that you are something, one of these labels, if they think you might have bipolar, might have ADHD, whatever it is, maybe look into it and, read into it a little bit. You might save yourself 10 years of, constant failures by just diving in now. And believe me, this is not what the content that I wanted to make. I want to make content about exercise and biohacks and stem cells and, cool new technology for healing and healing spinal cord injury, about being out in nature and spearfishing and hunting and all the things that surfing, whatever, all the things I love. But this is the content that I have to make, and that this pursuit is pushing me to make, because it's what I overlooked forever. I did everything else. I tried everything else that I could to succeed at the things I wanted to succeed at, and the one thing I've been hindered by over and over again is myself. And I'm sure that I'm not alone in this, and so I'm just going to continue honestly sharing what's happening and what I'm realizing, with the hopes that it will spur even one other person on to do the research necessary for themselves, or just click like, hey, maybe 50 people in my life have told me I have ADHD. Maybe rather than just shelving that as bullshit, I should really look into it and look at not only how to improve my overall function, but also what are the causes of it? Where does it come from? How does it happen? I really do think that medication should be kind of a last line of defense, but that's just my opinion because of negative results that I've had. If it's completely destroying your life and you can't do the work to fix it, then, I don't discount medication whatsoever. I just prefer myself to, to proceed without it. I just am always terrified of the long-term side effects. I know that it's great, that there are often great medications that serve as a Band-Aid or just a little boost to get you through, but that wouldn't be the case for me medicating myself for ADHD. I've self-medicated for years. I've been prescribed Adderall and stuff before. I just could not take it responsibly, and it narrowed my focus far too much. I would just get completely obsessed with one thing, whatever it was I was working on. That's all I would do all day, all the time. And so it had negative side effects like immediately for me. It did produce results. I mean, I was taking Adderall when I wrote the first book that I wrote, but I mean, I wrote like a 225,000 page book in 30 days. So that kind of says what it was doing. I wasn't even taking it like around the clock. I mean, I was taking it when I woke up in the morning, and then maybe a little bit more like 10 or 11. And I was basically writing from 6 a.m. besides like workouts and standing and like a little stretching and, paralysis management and letting my dogs outside. I was literally writing from like 6 or 7 a.m. till 10 or 11 p.m. all day, every day for a month straight. So I don't know. It doesn't, it's just not for me, but that's just wanted to share because that's what I'm doing here. That's the whole point of making these videos every day, and showing the progression and oftentimes the regression, and then is there a word for after regression? Is it just progression again? The progression again? Yeah, I guess so. Anyways, that is it for now. I'm going to actually get some work done, try to sell some insurance so that I can, live my life and pay my bills and do all that fun stuff. Gonna try some tricks to get myself to actually focus on doing that because it has lost its novelty for me. And now it's just a trudging, treacherous grind. But I'm going to use some of the things that I've learned can help and just see if that allows me to work on it for a long enough period of time to see results. But that's it for now. I will probably be back shortly. But if not, goodbye until tomorrow. We'll have to see.